Well, welcome along to Silverstone, everybody, for the first of two races that we've got coming up for the Toyo Tyres 7 race series, supported by Goodstone Supplies over the course of this weekend. Goodstone Supplies based just down the road at Banbury, so on the doorstep of the home of the British Grand Prix. So the cars for the Toyo Tyres 7 race series heading out for the first of two races that we'll see for them today. This is a 30-minute race that is coming up. They've got a slightly shorter 25-minute race a little bit later on, and what is a colossal grid of 58 cars that qualified over the course of this morning in their two separate classes, the 420Rs and the 1600cc cars. So an enormous grid of cars. I think 36 cars in the 420 class. Everybody else, therefore, sits in the 1600. So it's going to be a busy race, this one. And in typical fashion for the Toyo Tyres 7 race series, they're going to be hunting in packs, particularly around Silverstone. Lots of opportunity to slipstream. There'll be many changes of position as well as they all slipstream past each other, and the key will be trying to stay in the main pack. We will guide you through what is an enormous grid of cars. Hopefully we'll get a graphic up. If not, I can guide you through it, because all of the usual names are out there. And certainly the man who leads the championship did the very best job in qualifying, because it was the number 4 car of Anthony Barnes that set the fastest time in qualifying. He starts from pole position. Alongside him is the man who's second in the championship, Phil Jenkins. Row 2 of the grid is Jonathan Mitchell and Paul Thacker, with row 3 being Justin Armstrong lining up against Andy Perry. It's Stuart Calder and Jay McCormack that sit there on row number 4. And row 5, it's Tom Harmon-Joyce and Lewis Tootle that line up there on row number 5. Row 6 is Oliver Gibson and Gary Tootle, and the next row of the grid sees the number 86 car of Steve Riley line up alongside Adam White, with row 8 being Matt Welch and Mark Bennett. Onto the 9th row of the grid, only 17th quickest in qualifying for the man who's third in the championship, Mark Stansfield, so he's got a bit of work to do. He sits alongside Russ Olivant, and row 10 of the grid is Ian Cowley and Matt Drew. Row 11 sees Andy Thomas line up alongside Rick Potter, and it's Philip Nagel and Matt Reeve that sit there on row number 12, with row 13 being Stephen Collins and Richard Broughton, and row 14 is Mark Drain sitting alongside Duncan Greenway. The 15th row of the grid is Ian Dyball and the 755 car of Tim Burton. Then it's Ian Noble that has Matt Spark for company on row number 16, with row 17 being 62 John Saunders and Tom Woods. And the final row of the 420s is 222, which is Julian Carey and Cliff Murphy. Then there'll be about a 20-second delay before we get the 1600s underway. And for pole for the 1600s is 119 Stuart Bell sitting alongside Luke Rosewell. Row 2 is Gary Smith, who leads the championship in the 1600s, sitting alongside David Yates. And the third row for the 1600s is Michael O'Reilly and Caroline Everett. Row 4, Chris Fraser and Chris Savage, with row 5 being John Chevrolet, who sits alongside Scott Parker. And then it's Finley Cooper and Andrew Donaldson, before we move on to what is in reality the 26th row in total of the grid. Simon Sharrock and Paul Setai have Andy Ebden and Rob Good on the next row of the grid, the man who's supporting the championship in the stream this weekend. Then it's Greg Hyatt and Jeff Newman, Paul Wells and Dave Antrobus and Colin Loughlin. Ben Rosewell lines up on the tail end of what is a colossal 58 car grid for this one, for what is a rolling start as well. So we won't see the cars line up on the grid, and then the lights go out. Lights will be on the gantry, safety car will peel its way into the pits, and then we'll get the 30 minutes of the race underway. So Anthony Barnes, the championship leader, looking to see whether he can make good his escape. He has picked up the extra 3 championship points as a result of qualifying on pole position. Phil Jenkins, his main championship rival, is second. So I think coming into this weekend before qualifying there was 4 points between them. Now there's 5 points between the pair of them, because Anthony Barnes picked up 3 points for qualifying, Phil Jenkins just the 2, but certainly Anthony Barnes and Phil Jenkins have been at the sharp end of Caterham racing in the 7th race series for a good period of time. A few little sprinkles of rain you can see just on the camera lenses. We did have a little bit of rain in one of the races just before this one got underway, and you can see that the skies are somewhat dark, so there's a few clouds passing over. The true likelihood of rain is less than about 25%, but what that really means is it's not likely to be a shower, it's more likely to be spits of rain. So I'm not entirely convinced for the next 30 minutes that conditions are going to remain stable. I think there will be maybe a few little sprinkles here and there, and because of the layout of Silverstone, it might rain at some parts of the circuit but could well be dry at others. So all adding spice to the mix ahead of this this 8th round of the Toyo Tyres Racing Series for 2022, supported by Good Stone Supplies, based in Banbury just down the road, so plenty of support from them over the course of these 2 races that are coming up. So everybody is in neat 2x2 order. Remember, the 420s will get going. About 20 seconds later, we'll get the 1600s on the way. And the red lights are on the gantry. They peel their way through Woodcote Corner, and as they head over the start-finish line, Anthony Barnes in the Dayglow car, sitting to the left of your screen, doesn't get a bad start at all, and is starting to propel himself down towards Copse Corner for the first time. Watch out for Justin Armstrong in his sort of Dayglow yellow rollover hooped car in the number 23 car. He was looking to try and make inroads, but the gap just didn't open up ahead of him, so I think he's still bottled up in where he started, really, in 5th place. But they all charge their way down towards Maggots and Beckett's for the first time, but it's Phil Jenkins, second in the championship, that picks up the early race lead from Anthony Barnes in 2nd position. And then in 3rd place, that looks like it's Jonathan Mitchell that's slotted himself through into 3rd position. Paul Thacker, without question, in a metallic red car, is there in 4th place. So the 420s propel themselves out of Chapel and onto the hangar straight for the first time. Here come the 1600s about to get themselves underway, and it's Stuart Bell that is on pole position from Luke Rosewell in the 1600s. And as the lights go out for the 1600s, they work their way up towards Copse Corner, and it is going to be Stuart Bell who is going to take up the early lead in the 1600s from the dark blue car with its orange flashes in the hand of Luke Rosewell. Watch out for car number 22, Gary Smith, the all black car. He is the championship leader in the 1600s coming into this weekend. And he is there in 3rd place, but he's having to stick his elbows out, actually. I think David Yates has been able to pip him, yeah. So David Yates briefly up into 3rd, but back down into 4th as Gary Smith adjusts the order in the early stages. So everybody safely through the first half a lap, both in the 420Rs and in the 1600s. And as the 1600s head onto the hangar straight for the first time, here we go. Typical Caterham action. Everybody sitting in the slipstream of everybody else. Cars moving around to try and break the tow, and as soon as they do, the car behind will try and weave its way past as the 1600 lead is about to change by the look of things up towards the braking area at Stowe Corner. And Stuart Bell was leading the way. I think Luke Rosewell is about to squeeze his way through and into the early lead of the 1600s as they head round through Stowe and then start to descend upon the Vale for the first time. Down the Wellington Straight go the overall race leaders in the 420Rs. It was Anthony Barnes that was leading the way. He's just about got his nose ahead of Phil Jenkins still. The metallic red car, though, in 3rd place is going to be Paul Thacker, who's come through into 3rd place. Jonathan Mitchell sitting there in 4th, who hasn't done the full championship season, Jonathan. First time we saw him out was the 3 races that we had at Snetterton last time out. We didn't see him at Donington Park in the opening weekend of racing. We didn't see him at Brands on the Grand Prix circuit. But when he appeared at Snetterton, 2 race wins in a second. So that light blue car sitting in 4th place, you cannot discount over the course of this 30-minute race, for which they've now chalked lap number 1 into the book. Phil Jenkins leads. Anthony Barnes gets a better run coming out of Copse Corner and may well go back through to pick up the lead of the race. And as I said, we're going to have so many changes of lead in this one. The key to this is making sure you are in the main pack of cars. Doesn't matter where you are, all you need to do is be in that main pack as you head onto the final lap, and from there it's sort of roll your sleeves up or take your shirt off and they'll just slug it out as to who's going to finish where. So through Beckett's, a couple of cars just running a little bit wide there, side by side for the lead of the race. To the left of your screens is Phil Jenkins, just slotting in behind is Anthony Barnes in 2nd position as they head up towards Stowe Corner on lap number 2. Say a colossal field of 58 cars having qualified, 36 of which were in the 420R class alone. But it is sort of 6 for the lead, isn't it, at the moment? Phil Jenkins, Anthony Barnes, then it's going to be Paul Thacker. After Paul Thacker, the next of the cars is Justin Armstrong. Justin Armstrong is coming under attack from Jonathan Mitchell. And I think at the tail end of that little squabble now is going to be Andy Perry's car. So that's the first batch of cars for the 1600s, though. They are just weaving their way through Maggots and Beckett's now and leading the 1600s at the end of the first lap of the race, or leading the 1600s now, is Luke Rosewell by the look of things, but under attack for the number 22 car that is working its way through and into contention. It is the championship leader in the 1600s, Gary Smith, that picks up the lead of the 1600s. David Yates is there in 2nd place, but look to drivers left. Who's alongside him? It's Stuart Bell, who qualified on pole in the 1600s, and now we're almost going to make it a pair for the lead of the race, absolutely together in towards the braking area for the Vale. Snatch breaks behind, but it is Gary Smith that hangs on to the lead of the 1600s from David Yates in 2nd place. Luke Rosewell is there in 3rd, Down to fourth, albeit for the moment in the 1600s, is Stuart Bell at the wheel of the red car. Again, all of that weaving from side to try and break the toe on the cars behind. Just a little bit further adrift of those for the 1600s. I think that might be Michael O'Reilly that was the next of those that was up in the 1600s. But wherever you look, with 58 cars on track, there are always going to be some titanic battles. The 420Rs have just chalked lap number 2 into the book, and it is Tom Heyman Joyce, who is in 7th place, that has popped in the fastest lap of the race at 2 minutes 21.628 on the first of the flying laps. And it's not surprising that we see him popping that fastest lap of the race, because he is the last car that's in this lead train. So what he'll have been doing is picking up the toe from the cars ahead of him. They'll be punching the hole in the air. They're not the most aerodynamic cars, Caterhams, so they do create a big hole in the air, and it's not surprising that car number 147, the light green car with the black wheel arches and nose to it, gained the advantage because he was at the tail end of the queue. He's picking up the double and treble and quadruple toe, and that's why in the first flying lap he's popped in the fastest lap of the race as they head downhill and in towards the braking area, in towards the Vale. And it is going to be the car of Andy Perry that is leading the way at this stage. So the black and blue and white car of Andy Perry picks up the early lead of the race. Bearing in mind he was third as they came over the start-finish line. It's Phil Jenkins who is leading, that's down to second when they come over the start-finish line. And third at the moment is going to be Anthony Barnes. So through Abbey, then they flick their way through Farm and in towards the braking area for Village. Andy Perry leading Phil Jenkins. Paul Thacker dives up the inside of the number 4 car of Anthony Barnes to take third place away. Jonathan Mitchell now comes under attack and is about to lose a position, as well as Adam White squeezes his way through. So Adam White has worked his way up well from what was 14th position on the grid. Adam White, so he's really starting to get in the mix with the leading cars now and is trying to squeeze Jonathan Mitchell over towards the left-hand side of the circuit so as to narrow his entry in towards Brooklands. There was a big old lock break there, though, from Andy Perry in the lead of the race. The unloaded wheel just snatching, the Toyo tyre telling him that he didn't like what he was trying to do to it there, but he still hangs on to the lead. Now, what of the car that qualified way out of position for the man who was third in the championship? The number 19 car of Mark Stansfield started 19th. He's third in the championship. He's still only 16th now, so it's not been a great race for Mark Stansfield. Plenty of time in which to make it up, but he's still got a lot of places to make up. And, of course, we've got this top 7 cars really have broken away to a reasonable degree. So out of Copse Corner go the 420s. Anthony Barnes has, for the moment, picked up the lead of the race, with Paul Thacker slotting himself into second place. Phil Jenkins in the red car is third, but he's going for second as they head up towards Beckett's. He's got the inside line. Both cars red and black, but the difference between the two of them is that Phil Jenkins is a pure red, whereas the car of Paul Thacker is a metallic red car for his car, so it's slightly darker in terms of its coloration. So Anthony Barnes leads. Now watch out here for Andy Perry. He's picking up slipstream from those around him. The light blue car of Jonathan Mitchell looking to try and squeeze his way through, with 3 wide further back as well, as Ross Ollivant is on the outside line and is going wheel to wheel with Jay McCormack, the Irishman from Dublin. Jay, a former 1600 champion from a few years ago. Lock brakes, 3 wide in towards the Vale, and they all come out pointing in the right direction with no contact between them all. Good driving this from the top 7 cars, but it's Anthony Barnes from Andy Perry now, first and second position, and it looks as though Paul Thacker, Jonathan Mitchell and Phil Jenkins are going to try and make it 3 wide for third place up towards Abbey. They squeeze their way through. Just behind them is car number 168, which is the orange car of Adam White, and still latched onto the tail end of that is the light green car, which is going to be Tom Heyman Joyce, who for the moment is the man who has still set the fastest lap of the race that we've seen so far. Nobody has bettered yet. The 121.628 he set a couple of laps ago at the wheel of that light green machine. So bouncing over the curbs on the exit, you can see there's a big dint in the exhaust pipe of Tom Heyman Joyce's car. Hopefully that's not affecting the back pressure on the exhaust and losing in power. Certainly doesn't seem to be the case, because he's still in that lead batch of cars, with the top 2 briefly having broken away now to a reasonable degree, not by much. The pack behind will try and close in once more, and that's the difficult thing in Caterham racing. If you squabble, you slow each other down, and on occasions, if you start to see the leaders pulling away and the pack start to split up, what you have to do is stop your fight, stop your argument, crack on, work together. Back to 1600s. It looks as though it's the number 47 car of Luke Rosewell that still leads the charge of the 1600s, but he's coming under pressure here from David Yates, who's going to pick up the lead as they head past the wing, down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight and through Abbey Farm and up towards Village. And Luke Rosewell, David Yates, then it's going to be the car of Stuart Bell, who is going wheel to wheel with Gary Smith, who at the wheel of the dark black car. Dark black, there isn't no other colour than dark black. He works his way around the outside, and the man who leads the championship in the 1600s is now going to move up into third position. Stuart Bell dropping down into fourth at this stage, and all of these cars are fighting for places just outside of the top 30 at the moment, of course, because such is the size of the entry list. 58 cars were presented there on the grid. Luke Rosewell looking to try and hang on to second. Bouncing off the curbs is the car in third place, which is the black car with the red stripe down the centre in the hands of Gary Smith. Just off that lead pack at the moment is the number 79 car looking to try and join in the fun, and that's Jeff Newman, who has made really good progress actually. He qualified 18th in his class, 54th overall, but he's now managed to catch up with the front runners in the 1600cc category, so that's a good run from the number 79 car. The blue car with the Dayglow yellow flashes to it. So they work their way out of Copse Corner up towards Maggots and Beckett's, with David Yates picking up the 1600cc lead from Luke Rosewell and Stuart Bell. Gary Smith in the black car. Just after Gary Smith in that black car is going to be the next of the runners just heading through. We can also see that in the mix as well is the blue and green machine, which is going to be Caroline Everett, I think it will be, at the wheel of the number 9 car. Yes, it is, yeah, the number 9 car of Caroline Everett sort of weaving away in the background. And also in there is Michael O'Reilly as well. He's at the wheel of the number 13 car, trying to sneak up the inside of David Yates as they head round through Stowe Corner, but also conscious he's got Caroline Everett right behind him, and the charging Jeff Newman at the wheel of his car with the Dayglow yellow rollover hoop. So what is it, 6 cars is it for the lead of the 1600s? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think 7 that is for the lead of the 1600s. It's being led by Luke Rosewell, but yeah, they've got a breakaway of 7 cars for the lead of the 1600s, and I think it was a breakaway of 7 cars also, wasn't it, for the lead of the 420s. So leaders have completed 5 laps. About halfway round the 5th lap are the 1600s at the moment. You can hear the Toyo tyres squealing away as we go back towards the overall race leaders, who are now on their 6th lap of the race. Phil Jenkins it is that leads the way at this stage, but right with him is Andy Perry in second position. That white and black and blue car of Andy Perry. Anthony Barnes is there in third as Andy Perry jinks out from behind. Phil Jenkins goes for the lead. You can see him indicate there as to what they want to do. They are happy to work together at this stage. So that was no sort of gesticulation with frustration. That was a, come on, let's work together. Let's stick with this. I'll slipstream you, you slipstream me. We'll work together. We'll try and see whether we can break away. So it's Andy Perry that picks up the lead. Anthony Barnes second, Phil Jenkins third. Paul Thacker in the metallic red car sits there in fourth. Then it's Jonathan Mitchell, Johnny Mitchell, that's there in 5th place at the wheel of the light blue car. Who's behind him at 6th place? That's the orange machine, isn't it, that sits there in 6th position. And that's the car of Adam White that's worked its way up through the order. So Andy Perry weaving around as he looks to try and hang on to the lead of the race. Completing the top 6, top 7 will be Tom Heyman-Joyce still. His light green car, you can see, is just there in 6th or 7th position. But whilst we've had 7 cars break away, it's really sort of now 5 that have got the breakaway, and in 6th and 7th place they're just being dropped very slightly at this stage. So 5 for the lead. Adam White will need to work with Tom Heyman-Joyce if they want to try and make it 7 for the lead again, but they're also getting caught themselves in 6th and 7th place by the cars that sit behind, including the car in 8th place, which is Jay McCormack. And the car I would watch on this lap is probably the number 23 car, who's going beautifully well and is setting purple sectors at this stage. That's Justin Armstrong, who qualified 5th, but at the moment Justin Armstrong is down in 9th position, so he's got a bit of work to do. Oh, almost contact there. Phil Jenkins almost rubbing the rear wheel of David Yates. The two of them wheel to wheel still as they head out of Luffield and up towards Woodcote Corner. First 10 minutes of this race has gone, so we are, first 15 minutes of this race has gone, so we are pretty much at the half distance point now as they head over the start finish line. Lap number 6 completed, and this time as Paul Thacker briefly had the lead of the race, he doesn't exactly take Copse Corner as he would have wished, so all of a sudden he finds himself tumbling down through the order. It's Phil Jenkins that leads the way. Anthony Barnes is just going to squeeze his way through into second place. Is he in ahead of Jonathan Mitchell in the blue car? Yes, he does. Andy Perry's there in third place, but under attack from the orange car of Adam White. Tom Heyman-Joyce, the big loser there was Paul Thacker. He ran so wide at Copse Corner that all of a sudden he is now down towards the tail end of this lead squabble of the race. Now, Jonathan Mitchell is trying to find a gap. It really isn't there. He's got 2 wheels on the grass heading up towards Stowe Corner, so the fastest part of the circuit up to the bottom section of the Hanger Straight and Stowe. He had got 2 wheels on the grass as he was being squeezed there to a degree by Anthony Barnes, who was having none of it. Well, the gap wasn't really there. It was about to Caterham width, but it didn't leave a great deal of contingency there. And thankfully, they were all driving still very, very sensibly. The driving conditions and driving standards in Toyo Tyres 7 race series, supported by good stone supplies, are usually very good indeed. And yeah, hats off to the drivers there for just being respectful with each other. Hard racing, but fair racing, as Anthony Barnes, the pole sitter, goes back to the lead of the race with 14 minutes remaining. He picks up the lead from Phil Jenkins. Andy Perry is now under pressure from the car of Adam White, who is looking to try and wiggle his way through. And is he going to be able to do it? Side by side in towards Village. He's got the inside line for the loop though, and is the 168 car going to go through and into third? Yes, up to the podium spots for the moment comes Adam White. As we say, he started 14th on the grid. So, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I would say almost 11 cars for the lead pack at this stage before we start to see any sort of daylight between them all. Again, lots and lots and lots of lock breaks. That looked like Andy Perry, who's gone off very, very wide at Brooklands Corner. I thought it was him that had snatched a break. He should be able to rejoin. Yeah, there goes the number 11 car, but he ran very, very, very wide there. He's rejoined the circuit just ahead of the car of Jay McCormack, the man from Dublin, former 1600cc champion. Is Jay as they head over the start-finish line now, and will complete yet another lap. And this time through, we've had good improvement for the number 147 car of Tom Heyman-Joyce, who was over the start-finish line up into 4th place, but he's just been picked off by the time they get towards Copse. Back to the 1600s, and what's going on? Well, it is still Luke Rosewell that is leading the way in the 1600s, but not by much still. You can look in his mirrors and see that right with him is the car of Gary Smith. That's the number 22 car of Gary Smith that sits there in second position in the 1600s, and it's going to be Stuart Bell in the red car with the black stripe down the centre of it that's third in the 1600s the way things currently stand. But you can see that not that far behind are the likes of Jeff Newman. Caroline Everett's in on the mix as well. We've also got the white and blue and black car of David Yates. So wherever you look, there are squabbles going on, and the number 13 car as well of Michael O'Reilly. So no breakaway really in the 1600s. Big old spin though, and that is number 85 that's had the spin. Should get it pointing in the right direction and head on his merry way once more. But that is going to drop that car way, way down through the order as a result of that spin. That was Colin Loughlin, who qualified at the tail end of the field, that had the rotation there. So we've got just under 12 minutes of the race to go. The 1600cc cars still sticking their elbows out to try and work out who wants to lead. I think it's going to be Gary Smith here that's going to pick up the lead of the race. So the championship leader in the 1600s goes through. Luke Rosewell, though, is trying to fight it out. Gary Smith has had 4 wins in the 1600s so far this year. Luke Rosewell is as yet to win. He sits 5th in the championship standings, does Luke Rosewell, at the wheel of that dark blue car with its orange flashes. But he hasn't had a win, I don't think, so far this season, has Luke Rosewell. No, he's had 4 second places and a third. The one step of the podium he hasn't stood on is the top step. Well, he's in third at the moment, but he's still got 11 minutes to make sure he stays in the lead pack and sees how the race will open up. It's almost like a game of poker, really, racing a Caterham. You do not show your hand until you absolutely need to. Just make sure you're where you need to be. Luke Rosewell's going to pick up the double toe. He goes past Gary Smith. Is he going to go past the car of Stuart Bell? Yes, he does. Sneaks his way from third to first, and that just goes to show the all-important slipstream in the Caterham. utilise the hole in the air made by the cars ahead, work your way through into position. And as I say, all this is just making sure you're there or thereabouts in the lead pack. Almost the thing you don't want to do is be in the lead of the race, probably heading down the Wellington Straight for the final time, because you're a bit like a sitting duck then. Everybody is just going to slipstream their way past you. But Luke Rosewell, for the moment, with 10 minutes to go, happy to pick up the lead of the race in the 1600s. And who's picked up the lead of the race overall? Well, it was the number 88 car of Phil Jenkins as they come over the start-finish line. And this time through, they're starting to get themselves amongst the traffic to a degree. So they go past the number 85 car of Colin Loughlin, who had that spin a while ago. Anthony Barnes looking to try and take up the lead of the race, is he? From Phil Jenkins. No, he slots himself through into second place. Oh, and there's a bit of contact there. The nose of the car of Jonathan Mitchell into the back of Anthony Barnes. He'd already got a bit of a bash in that rear panel anyway, but I think there was just a slight amount of contact there, and let's hope that hasn't caused any damage to Jonathan Mitchell's number 71 car. I think he was just caught out heading in towards Stowe. It certainly looked like there was a bit of a bash, a very unintentional bash, but into the rear of Anthony Barnes' car, which had already got a kink in that part of the bodywork anyway. Let's just hope that it hasn't, and I think it might have done. I think it might have damaged Jonathan Mitchell's car, because you can see the light blue car slowing down there. Is it a punctured radiator for Jonathan Mitchell? Because the 71 car is slowing, and I'm afraid that light contact has caused some damage to the number 71 car. Let's hope he's not dropping coolant onto the circuit. The radiator is at the very nose of the Caterhams, and yeah, that light touch has clearly instantly shown Jonathan Mitchell as a problem. So he was third. I think he's heading towards retirement, I'm afraid, and that has split the pack to a degree. So it's now Phil Jenkins and Anthony Barnes who will need to work together here to see whether they can break away from the car that's in third at the moment, which is the car of Andy Perry, the number 11 car, the blue and the white and the black machine. So 8 minutes of this race still to go. We've had very few retirements, and I don't think any sort of incidents other than a little spin and that very slight amount of contact. There is a rear wheel arch sitting half the way down the Hanger Straight as we look at the 1600s at that point of the circuit. Luke Rosewell is still leading the 1600s outside of the top 30 overall in the race, but as we say, when we've got 36 cars in the 420s alone and 58 in total, we do need to keep picking out these cars having their own individual battles. Thankfully just two separate classes to concentrate on, and as they head in the sunshine at that part of the circuit down in towards the Vale, it looks sunnier on that part of the circuit. It's still very cloudy over the start-finish line, but Luke Rosewell trying to break away from the car of Stuart Bell, the red car that sits there. And then Gary Smith, the championship leader. Just off that is going to be the next of the cars, which is going to be David Yates. Then there's a slight gap back towards what will be the number 13 car next up, Michael O'Reilly, but he's under pressure from Jeff Newman's car with its Dayglow yellow rollover hoop. Remember, he started much further down the grid, Jeff Newman. Something like 18th position in the 1600s. And what is he at the moment? 6th, is it, in the 1600s? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe. Yeah, something like 6th in the 1600s. So out of Aintree on towards the Wellington Straight, they will thread their way as we head back towards what's going on in the 420Rs. So it's 3 for the lead in the 420Rs, and then the gap. So Tom Heyman-Joyce is sitting there in 4th place. He's got Adam White hounding him, and Paul Thacker as well at the wheel of the metallic red car, and just off those is the next of the cars as well with its Dayglow yellow rollover hoop. There's locked brakes from Tom Heyman-Joyce as Adam White almost gets into the back of him. That opens up a bit of a gap, and Paul Thacker tries to go between the pair of them, just about backed out of the move in time, but that was very close indeed there, and he just managed to realise that the gap was closing to a degree. So wherever you look, there are going to be battles in the Toyo Tyres 7th race series. What we're looking at now is the number 42 car busy squabbling away, and that is Paul Setai, who is fighting away with, I think that was Greg Hyatt that he was squabbling away with. And they're having a good old fight as they work their way over the start-finish line. And who's just ahead of them? It's the number 54 car that's just ahead of them, which is going to be Andy Ebdon. So Andy Ebdon sticking his elbows out and enjoying it as well. Andy has been a fairly long time Caterham racer, if memory serves me correctly. As many of them are, they seem to sort of find their way into Caterhams, and they might try different championships or different classes or different cars, but largely stick with the Caterhams. And certainly the Toyo Tyres 7th race series, a very affordable way to go Caterham Racing if you've got a 420R or a 1600 that meets the championship regulations. Big spin, and unfortunately that's a couple of cars that have collected each other there, I'm afraid to say. That is Tim Burton that has got into the side of Duncan Greenaway. They should hopefully be able to get themselves going again, but that slight little tangle there up at Brooklands corner, and then also problems for the 36 car. Not quite sure what happened there to Rob Good, but the man who owns and runs and is part of the Good Stone Supplies company based at Banbury, who are supporting our live stream of the Sevens race series, rejoining the circuit. Right, okay, we've got a bit more bodywork here and there strewn around the Hanger Straight. There was a wheel arch on the grass, but there's now one in the circuit. There's also one off to the left-hand side as far as drivers are concerned on the Hanger Straights. There's a few bits of bodywork that needs scooping up by our fantastic Silverstone marshals, who we could not go racing without, and certainly particularly this weekend we pay enormous debt of gratitude to our Silverstone marshals, because it was a year ago today that sadly we lost Rob Good, who was a marshal at Brands Hatch, who was tragically killed. So we continually thank our marshals for all of their sterling work. Doesn't matter whether it's here at Silverstone or any circuit, we couldn't go racing without them. Back to the lead squabble. Paul Thacker coming under pressure from Tom Heyman-Joyce. Adam White in the orange car behind outbraked himself. Tom Heyman-Joyce fires it back up the inside of Paul Thacker, heading in towards the loop. Didn't quite work. There's more bits of bodywork starting to fly off the cars with 4 minutes to go. This is the squabble, not for the lead of the 420Rs, because they're just a bit further up the Wellington Straight at this stage. Phil Jenkins, Anthony Barnes and Andy Perry still the lead trio for the 420Rs, and they're having to work their way through traffic now, which has just interrupted their squabble for a degree as they start to catch some of the slower 1600cc cars. So that's Paul Wells in the yellow and black car that has just been passed by the race leaders. Over the start-finish line comes Anthony Barnes. He has picked up the lead of the race, or has he? Because he's got Andy Perry straight to driver's left. Andy Perry missing a wheel arch, so he's one of those that's got involved. Anthony Barnes, as you can see now, is missing a rear wheel arch. Phil Jenkins has still got all the bodywork on his car, but he's been embroiled in some great battles, and now all the bets are off really. So we are on to what will be the penultimate lap of the race. I said what you need to do is be in the lead pack, stay in the lead pack for the first 25 minutes, 28 minutes of the race, then roll your sleeves up for the final couple of laps. And now there's no more working together now. It is driving as hard as you can, defending as much as you possibly can, and you can see Andy Perry weaving around to try and break the toe on Anthony Barnes, but as a result of that, Anthony Barnes is being slipstreamed by Phil Jenkins. Barnes goes for the lead of the race as they head up towards the braking area for Stowe corner. Is Phil Jenkins going to sneak up the inside? No, but Andy Perry goes from the lead down to third. Now that might not worry him still at this stage, because he still knows this is just the penultimate lap. He is still, even in third place, in prime position to pick up the toe from the cars that lie ahead of him. And of course we've got some slower 1600cc cars that will also need to try and weave their way through and past. Nose coneless, so a nose job needs doing for the number 33 car. That is Richard Broughton's car, so he will have a little bit of a handling issue. Shouldn't affect him too much as long as it hasn't damaged the radiator. And then there's a big gravelly moment that is just in the process of being scooped up round through Abbey and Farm. Lots of arm twirling, a slight spike in the heart rate, but should Scott Parker be able to rejoin the track without too many issues. So 2 minutes of the race to go. It is Anthony Barnes that leads the way. Remember, Anthony Barnes is the championship leader coming into this weekend. Who's second in the championship? Well, look in your mirrors, Anthony Barnes. It's Phil Jenkins. He's right behind you. They're going to meet the back marker in the perfect spot on the Wellington Straight, so they sit behind to pick up the toe. Through goes Anthony Barnes. Through goes Phil Jenkins, and now Phil Jenkins looks for the inside, heading in towards Brooklands to pick up the lead of the race. Andy Perry in the background bounces over the curbs at the wheel of the black and white and blue machine as he sits there in third place overall. And now they're about to head on to the final lap of the race. Now Phil Jenkins leading at the start of the lap won't concern him. He may well lose the lead by the time they get towards Copse Corner. That won't worry him either. What you don't want to be doing is probably leading as you head on to the Wellington Straight on the last lap, because otherwise all that's going to happen is you're going to get picked off from the cars behind. So Jenkins picks up the lead. Anthony Barnes tries to get a better exit, heading out of Copse Corner and heading up towards Maggots and Beckett's. Andy Perry is there in third, so it's these three cars. We were 7 for the lead of the race for a good period of time, but what with the skirmishes and the squabbling, it's now a trio for the lead, and as long as they stay clean, it should be all 3 of these on the podium. as to which order is still very much up for dispute as they head out of Chapel and onto the hanger straight for the first time. Phil Jenkins is going to lose the lead of the race by sure by the time they get towards Stowe Corner, because through comes Anthony Barnes. Andy Perry picks up the double toe. Is he going to head through and into the lead of the race when they get up towards Stowe? I think he will. Yes, he does. So Andy Perry now leads the way. Anthony Barnes, the championship leader, down into second. You can see the damage to the tail end of his car where he was punched in the rear by Jonathan Mitchell, who did subsequently retire as a result of that contact between the pair of them. But in towards the braking area for the Vale, Phil Jenkins tries to hang it out around the outside of Anthony Barnes to get the inside as they head in towards Club. They lean on each other, but equally give each other enough room. It's not quite going to work for Phil Jenkins there, so he's there in third position. They've also got 1600cc cars that they're not going to catch just yet as they head down the Lewis Hamilton straight. And again, that weaving around from Andy Perry, anything to try and break the toe on the championship leader Anthony Barnes. It's not working at the moment because he's sticking with the task in hand as they head up towards the braking area for Village for the final time. Is Phil Jenkins going to sneak up the inside of Anthony Barnes? He thought about it, decided not to in the end, so nose to tail they'll head in towards the left-hander at the loop. The clock has ticked to 0. There are back markers just up the road that they're going to catch on the Wellington Straight and in towards Luffield, and that could be the deciding factor in the first of these Toyo Tyres 7 race series races, supported by Goodstone Supplies, based in Banbury this weekend, as Andy Perry jinks to try and defend from Anthony Barnes, but Anthony Barnes sneaks his way up the inside and tries to put a back marker between himself and the pack that sits behind. And is it going to be just enough for Anthony Barnes now to hang on to the lead of the race? No, he's still got Andy Perry with him and Phil Jenkins. The sprint to the line could decide this one. Anthony Barnes is already a multiple race winner in the series this year, and as he heads over the start finish line, Anthony Barnes, has he just about done enough? Takes the checkered flag, and as they go through, it is Phil Jenkins that on the run to the line was not able to catch Andy Perry, who could not quite muster enough to get past Anthony Barnes. So Anthony Barnes, the championship leader, picks up his second win actually of the season. I said he was a multiple race winner. No, that's his second win of the season for Anthony Barnes. Andy Perry finishes in second position by 93 thousandths of a second, and third is Phil Jenkins. That's what's going on with the 1600s we need to try and pick out as well, as they will be only part the way round their final lap, and they've been having a great squabble all the way through. All the rest of the 420Rs heading over the start finish line, and you can see just how many 420Rs we've got, still all of them in batches, hunting in packs heading over the start finish line. But the 1600s should be halfway round their final lap, and here we go for the 1600s. It is going to be the red car, which is Stuart Bell, that is leading the 1600s as they head out of Club and head down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight in towards Abbey. Luke Rosewell is side by side with David Yates for second in the 1600s. They've all had some brilliant racing. Gary Smith is third, and the blue and green car is Caroline Everett that's hanging on to the coattails of those around. So has Stuart Bell got just enough advantage in the lead of the race? David Yates goes a little bit squirrely in towards what was the braking area for Village. Up towards the loop, he's got things gathered up and is now trying to defend from Gary Smith, who's trying to sneak his way through and up into the podium spots. But I think Stuart Bell has probably just about got enough of a gap between himself and Luke Rosewell so as to not worry as they head down the Wellington Straight. Luke Rosewell will begin to close in on the red car, but he's too far away when they get towards Brooklands Corner. It's who's going to finish third that might be the deciding factor here. Caroline Everett all the way around the outside of David Yates. They push each other wide. Luke Rosewell makes contact with Stuart Bell. Stuart Bell heads onto the grass and into the gravel trap, and that is going to mean that the 1600cc battle is going to be decided at the final corner, I'm afraid to say. And over the start-finish line, we will see them flash their way. Stuart Bell rather disgruntled with that one, but it is going to be, I think, Gary Smith that picks up the win in the 1600cc battle from Caroline Everett and David Yates. And for poor old Luke Rosewell and Stuart Bell, it came together on the final corner. Damage to both, frustration for both as well, but such a shame because other than that little bit of contact there, we had a pretty clean race for what was a hugely tight fought battle for the lead of the 1600s. So all of the cars largely now have taken the checkered flag. There is the rather battered looking number 75 car, which has had a bit of contact at the front end of it, but with all of the cars having taken the checkered flag, they'll make their way back round into the paddock area where John Jackson will be ready to talk to them, but before that we should be able to confirm at least some of the results. We're not going to get through them all with 58 cars. Anthony Barnes claims the win by 93 thousandths of a second. His second win of the season from Andy Perry, with Phil Jenkins third. Paul Thacker was fourth, ahead of Adam White, Tom Heyman Joyce. Stuart Calder was seventh. Eighth was a car that came up well from its starting position on the grid, the number 23 car, so that was a good performance there for Armstrong, who finished in 8th place. Ross Ollivant was 9th, and completing top 10 was Gibson. Lewis Tootle, Jay McCormack were there in 11th and 12th place. 13th place was Mark Bennett, and 14th place went the way of the number 53 car of Welch, with Riley, Tootle, Mark Drain, Drew, Thomas and Collins completing the top 20. There's all the rest of the 420Rs from 21st right the way through to 30th, and probably the best part of 35 cars in the 420Rs alone, but finishing as the winner in the 1600cc cars, actually in 31st position, just outside of the top 30, was car number 22 in the end, Gary Smith, just from Caroline Everett, and David Yates completes the podium for the 1600cc cars. So brilliant battling all the way through. Tom Heyman Joyce ultimately setting that fastest lap of the race very early on, actually, 2 minutes 21.621. I think it was on the first flying lap, but it was never actually bettered throughout the whole course of what was a very, very busy but thoroughly enjoyable first race for the Toyo Tyres Sevens Race Series, supported by Good Stone Supplies. That was round 8.
Here as the drivers are all congratulating each other. Everyone, I mean, we've seen a good battle between these two guys. I'll take you both together if that's all right for now. Anthony, your second race win, I believe, this year, and extend that lead in the championship. But it was a nice little battle there.
It was a great battle. To be honest, I didn't know it was final lap until I was on the wing straight, and yeah, I just spotted that my time had gone down to 0. I thought, okay, right, now it's time to pull the finger out. And I don't know, just got slightly lucky, I think. So I was behind Andy, so I got a tow, and then I got a tow from the back markers as well. So I just managed to stay ahead. Yeah.
Now we saw you looking at the back of the car there. What's the damage?
I reckon that's a rear basket, probably. Yeah, which is pricely for my father.
Not ideal at all. Phil, you came third there, and you know, some exceptional racing as well. A lot of cars out on the track. Is that an issue for you guys?
The end of the race was, caught a few back markers. Wasn't ideal timing. Fair play to Anthony and Andy Perry. Solid racing. It really was. Mitchell was in the mix at some stages. It was just frantic 30 minutes. Absolute. It's like a 30-minute qualifying session. Great fun, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And another race coming up later on. How are you hoping that's going to go? More of the same between you two, I'm imagining.
I'm hoping I get away and leave them in my dust trails, but I don't see that happening today. So
yeah, can we get a third win of the season?
I mean, that would be great, but I don't want to take too many off, Phil.
Okay, look, we'll let you go and celebrate first place for Anthony, third place for Phil. We need to find Andy. I believe it's Andy's first podium. We've got to walk over here, Ben. Ben is a very long-suffering cameraman here, who follows me everywhere I go. Andy Perry, your first, did I overhear your first podium in the UK?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Pretty pleased with that. I got one in Spa, but I don't really count that because Phil and Anthony weren't there. So, yeah, a bit of a cheat.
Now, you've managed to get in between these two guys who we've seen just fighting consistently forever. And I mean, that's pretty impressive out there. And Phil was saying, a lot of cars out on the track. It got a bit tricky towards the end. Did you find that as a problem?
Yeah, I think that's what allowed me to keep second place. Phil just got caught up behind a 310, so I'll take that.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, we have to talk about the track here at Silverstone, an iconic track in the world. It must feel pretty good every time you go around.
Yeah, great track. Absolutely love it. Particularly now. It's now my favourite track.
Okay, well, congratulations. We'll let you go and get your first trophy on your first podium here in the UK,
Cheers,
Andy. Congratulations. What an exciting 7 Series race. I mean, every time we see these cars going around, absolutely fantastic. And we're going to hand back now to Mark Werrell, who will talk you through that podium, the first ever one there for Andy.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John. So a brilliant first race. First of 2, of course, for the Toyo Tyres Sevens Race Series, because we will see them back out and we'll be bringing it all to you live later on. They're scheduled to be on track around about 3:30 this afternoon. But, of course, there's a lot more racing to go on between now and 3:30. So if you do want to join us for that race, just be aware we may be running early, we may be running a little bit late, depending on what happens between now and then. But one thing we can guarantee you is that we will be bringing you all of that action live for the 9th round coming up later on today of the Toyo Tyres 7th Race Series, supported by Good Stone Supplies, based in Banbury this weekend at Silverstone. So we should get some 6 drivers towards the podium. It should be the top 3 in the 420R class. It should also be the top 3 in the 1600cc class that will head towards the podiums. Now, which order they're going to do the podiums, whether it's 1600cc's first or 420Rs first, I don't know. It would just be a case of looking at who appears out on the podium. And you think about this Silverstone podium. This is the heritage pits that we're on now. So this is what was the old Grand Prix start-finish line before the extension to the circuit was done and the wing building was built. So you think back to the 1990s, you know, it was almost the late 80s, was it? Mid-80s through to the 90s and almost to just past the millennium. The number of different names that would have stood in Grand Prix racing on this very podium that we are looking at. And you think about, you know, Johnny Herbert's historic win here in the British Grand Prix, Damon Hill, Michael Schumacher, all of those will have stood on this very top step of the podium. There aren't many sports other than motor racing where, as an amateur, which these drivers are at the end of the day, as an amateur you can go and compete on the very same piece of real estate as people at the very top of their sport. You know, you can't go to Anfield or Old Trafford and play football, or Wembley and play football. You can't do it. You've got to be a professional. You could argue, yeah, if you've got the money to be a member at the Lawn Tennis Club, Wimbledon, yes, you could go and play tennis at Wimbledon, but there aren't many other sports other than maybe golf where you can go and play on exactly the same place of real estate and enjoy your sport as the pros as well. So we will see those drivers heading up onto the podium very shortly. Already you can see the track action is happening for the next of the races that's coming out, a qualifying session just heading out onto circuit now. The spectators will have enjoyed that Caterham race. They'll be looking forward to the race later on today again from the Toyo Tyres Sevens race series for what is a packed programme of other support races here at Silverstone, and it's always good to see a big grid of cars, particularly on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit as well, because it offers up lots of overtaking opportunities, and particularly for the Caterhams as well, lots of slipstreaming opportunities to shuffle that order. How many changes of lead did we have in both the 420Rs and the 1600s? And you could certainly count them on more than two hands. You'd have to take your socks off as well and count them on both feet, and you still wouldn't be there. You need a few more hands and feet to be able to add up the total number of lead changes that we had. And as I suggested earlier on, it's all vying for position to make sure you're where you need to be for the final few laps. So I think we're ready for the podium, and we can then guide you through the podium presentations for the Caterhams. There is Sean Bicknell, who is one of the representatives of the Toyo Tyres Sevens race series, works for Macmillan Motorsport, Andy McMillan's company based in Hinckley. There is Andy, the man behind the series, just putting the trophies out, and as ever a fantastic looking trophies that they have. The outline of the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, metal trophies, first, second and third, sprayed in the appropriate colours, and we're ready to go then with the podium presentations for round 8 of the Toyo Tyres Sevens race series here at Silverstone. Trophies are on the podium, bottles of bubbly are on the podium as well, and then we just need to usher out our drivers, who will be no doubt very happy with part one that they've done. They've got it all to do again later on, so maybe a spot of lunch, a bit of refreshment, and then we will see them head back out onto track later on this afternoon. So just waiting for the nod. I'm ready to go. We just need to make sure that the drivers are ready to go, and then we will see them on the podium. So we will, fingers crossed, see them out there. So there we go. I think they're waiting for somebody from the circuit PA to come and announce them, because of course you've got the circuit commentary and myself doing a live stream as well. So here we go. So up onto what will be the third step of the podium goes Phil Jenkins. Second step of the podium, Andy Perry finishes on the podium for the first time in the UK. The top step of the podium goes the way of Anthony Barnes in round 8 of the Toyo Tyres Sevens race series here at Silverstone. Andy McMillan presenting the trophies first of all to the third place driver Phil Jenkins, then on to Andy Perry, who looks really pleased with his efforts. And the top step of the podium, a second win this season, goes the way of the Team Parker Racing prepared car in the hands of Anthony Barnes. They're already charging the champagne. I think they'll spray it forwards, hopefully not towards our cameraman, because they have got another race to do later on, so they won't want to get their overalls sticky. Our cameraman will certainly not want to get sticky. That will not go down well with the production crew with a wet camera. So they will hopefully do the sensible thing and the gentlemanly thing, this time round at least, and spray the champagne forward. So there we go. The champagne flies on the podium. Anthony Barnes and Andy Perry struggling with, I would imagine, sweaty hands to get the cork out. Anthony Barnes, don't use your teeth, Andy, don't use your teeth. No, it's not going to work. I think he's given up on the idea. So we will see whether they all head on to the top step of the boat. No, Anthony Barnes is going to have to save that for later on. Do not use your teeth, Andy. Oh, crumbs. Here we go. All on the top step for the photographs. Hold the trophies as well, gents. It always looks better for the television cameras and the pictures as well. 3 happy-looking drivers on the top step of the podium for the Toyo Tyres 420Rs. And we will then see them back out a little bit later on. So congratulations to our top 3 drivers in the first of our Toyo Tyres 7's Race Series races, supported by Goodstone Supplies. We'll be back later on this afternoon with race number 2, so please join us then.